All right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive. U.S.-China relations. It's always a hot topic,
Always.
and it's a complex one, a real tug of war on the world stage.
Yeah, real balancing act.
It is, and recent events seem to have just thrown gasoline on an already, smoldering fire.
Yeah, you could say that.
With global implications we can't ignore, so
That
we've
seems
got to talk
right.
about it. These two superpowers, right? They're economic titans, totally intertwined, but they're constantly vying for dominance.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the classic frenemies situation, right? They need each other, but
Right.
they also want to kind of one-up each other all the time.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. needs China for affordable goods and manufacturing,
Right.
but China needs access to American tech and markets.
Exactly.
It's a delicate dance.
Very much so.
And one wrong step could send the whole world spinning.
Oh, for sure. High stakes.
Okay, so let's talk about some of these wrong steps. Maybe Trump right back in the White House. And
Me too.
he came out swinging
He-
with these proposed tariffs.
Yeah, he's not afraid to make a statement, that's for sure.
No, he's not. So these tariffs on China are making waves. So
Big waves.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't his first rodeo with protectionist policies, but
Yeah.
this time he's really upped the ante.
Yeah.
20% on all imports
Across the board.
across the board, and then
Yeah.
60% specifically on Chinese goods.
Whoa.
Yeah. So we're talking everything from those cheap sneakers you like
Yeah.
to the parts in your smartphone.
It's going to cost more
It's going to cost a lot more.
to make America great again, right?
Well, that's the idea. But the potential fallout is huge.
Okay, we'll break it down for us.
All right, so in 2023, U.S.-China trade was worth over $690 billion.
Okay.
So even if just 10% of those goods get hit with a 60% tariff,
Okay.
that's almost $42 billion added to American shopping bills.
Ouch.
Yeah, ouch is right. Inflation's already a problem, and this is just going to make it worse.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So while the U.S. is, laser focused on this trade war, China's playing the long game,
Oh, absolutely. They're thinking long-term strategically.
especially in Latin America.
Yeah.
They just made a huge power move that's kind of flown under the
Yeah,
radar.
Chancay Port in Peru,
This is a big deal, right?
massive, $3.5 billion project.
Wow.
Deepwater Port can handle 1 million shipping containers every year, thousands of vehicles.
And it's strategically positioned, too.
Oh, absolutely. Cuts shipping times by, 10 days.
So what's the bigger picture here?
Well, this port, it's a key piece in China's Belt and Road Initiative.
Okay, I've heard of this.
Think of it as a modern Silk Road connecting China to the world through land and sea roads.
They're going all in on this.
They are over $140 billion invested in Latin America alone since 2005.
So they're not just building, bridges and roads. They're
Right.
building influence,
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're setting up shop right in America's backyard.
which is interesting because Latin America has always been considered, within the U.S. sphere of influence.
Traditionally, yes, but China's challenging the status quo.
So the U.S. is focused on tariffs and trade wars, while China's investing in infrastructure.
Resources, partnerships.
It's a totally different approach.
It's like night and day.
It's like the U.S. is playing checkers and China's playing four-dimensional chess or something.
I like that analogy.
But here's the thing, right? These two economies are completely intertwined.
Oh, yeah, it's a tangled web for sure.
The U.S. gets, what, like 18% of its goods from China?
Around that,
Yeah.
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 And China relies heavily on American technology.
So trying to decouple these economies
Messy.
would be a disaster.
It would be like trying to separate conjoined twins.
Painful,
Yeah.
potentially devastating.
For both sides.
So we've got these two economic giants, right, locked in this delicate dance.
The cooperation and competition.
Yeah,
It's fascinating and terrifying all at the same time.
it really is. So the question is, what happens next? Where do we go from here?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And that's what we're going to dive into next. Exploring the potential scenarios for this high-stakes global game and what it means for all of us.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, the future of the U.S.-China relationship. It's a real head-scratcher. It's keeping a lot of analysts up at night.
I bet.
Some folks think things will eventually calm down, get back to a more predictable relationship, even if it's a little tense.
Thanks.
Others think we're seeing a fundamental shift in the global order, with inevitable friction as China rises and the U.S. tries to hold on to its top spot.
So it's like we're at a crossroads.
Hmm.
One path leads to more collaboration, and the other leads to a more fractured world. Potentially even a dangerous one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the question is, what factors could push us down one path or the other?
Right. Well, the trade war is obviously a huge factor. I mean, if these tariffs stay in place or if they get even worse, it could have serious
Oh,
consequences.
yeah, for sure. Not just for the US and China either. The whole global economy could feel the pain.
And we're not just talking about, prices going up for consumers.
No, no, no. We're talking disruptions to businesses,
Yeah.
supply chains, entire industries could be impacted.
Wow.
A full-blown trade war could really shake things up. Global markets would be in for a wild ride. Everything from manufacturing to investment to consumer confidence would take a hit.
It's a scary thought.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that happen.
But this isn't just about the economy, is it? I mean, this tension between the U.S. and China could spill over into other areas, like the military or geopolitics.
Yeah, you're right to bring that up. As China's military gets stronger and as they become more assertive in places like the South China Sea, the risk of a clash with the U.S. or its allies definitely increases.
Right. And then there's the elephant in the room.
Taiwan.
Ah, yes, Taiwan, the big one.
China sees it as a breakaway province that needs to be reunited with the mainland, and the U.S. has promised to defend Taiwan.
It's a recipe for disaster, really.
Yeah.
Any misstep or any escalation over Taiwan could have catastrophic consequences. So we've got this economic tug of war, we've got these simmering military tensions, and we've got this constant threat of a conflict over Taiwan. It's a pretty bleak picture.
It's definitely a challenging situation, but I wouldn't say it's all doom and gloom.
Okay, good.
There are some areas where cooperation between the U.S. and China is not only possible, but it's absolutely essential.
Like what?
Well, take climate change, for example. Both countries are major contributors to global greenhouse gas emissions, and neither one can solve this problem on their own.
Yeah, that's true. Climate change is a global problem that needs a global solution.
Exactly. And there are other areas where working together could benefit both countries.
Okay, like what?
Things like, combating pandemics, stopping the spread of nuclear weapons, maybe even space exploration.
So even with all this rivalry, there's still room for the U.S. and China to find some common ground and work towards shared goals.
Exactly. It's all about finding a way to balance the competition with the need for cooperation.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty tough balancing act.
Oh, it is. It's like walking a tightrope. But the stakes are incredibly high, not just for the U.S. and China, but for the entire world.
It's kind of crazy, right? 1 minute we're talking trade wars and military buildup. The next minute it's like, hey, we got to work together on climate change. It's tough to wrap your head around.
It is, yeah. It's like a high-stakes game of Risk. But the board keeps changing. Both sides are trying to win, but they also know that breaking up completely would be a disaster.
Yeah, so it's not about whether to engage, but how to engage, right?
Right, exactly.
What's the best strategy in this situation?
Well, for the U.S., it's all about staying on top,
Yeah.
maintaining their global leadership position, making sure competition is fair, especially in trade and technology.
Right. They want China to play by the rules.
Yeah, but the thing is, those rules were made when the U.S. was the big dog. Now China's saying, hey, we're a major player too. Time to update the rule book.
So for China, success is probably about being recognized as a global power.
Yeah.
Not just economically, but politically and militarily too.
Exactly. They want a multipolar world, a world where their influence rivals that of the U.S.
And the Belt and Road Initiative, that's a big part of that, right?
Huge. It's not just about infrastructure. It's
Mhm.
about projecting power, reshaping global trade to benefit China.
Which obviously creates tension with the U.S., hence all the issues we've been talking about.
Right.
Is there anything in history that's similar to this? This relationship is so complex.
Yeah, I mean, there are some similarities to the Cold War, the ideological differences, the arms race. But this is even more complicated because the U.S. and China are so economically intertwined. It's a totally new dynamic.
So what can the average person do? It's easy to feel helpless with all this geopolitical stuff going on.
I think the most important thing is to stay informed. Don't just tune it out, understand the issues, challenge your own assumptions, and talk about it. Have constructive conversations.
Don't just bury our heads in the sand and hope for the best.
No, definitely not. The future of this relationship, it's not set in stone.
Okay.
The choices we make both individually and as a society, they matter.
So it all starts with awareness.
Yeah, and understanding, and being willing to engage with all this complexity.
Well said. We've covered a lot today. The trade wars, the power struggles, the paradoxes, the potential for conflict. I hope our listeners are walking away with a better grasp of this really important relationship.
It's been a pleasure diving into this with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. The world is a complex place, and staying informed is more crucial now than ever. So keep asking those questions, keep learning, keep exploring. Until next time.